The last time Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were photographed together was in June 2025 at a FIFA Club World Cup game in Nashville. Looking back at those images now, knowing what we know, the body language tells a story that fans were too blinded by hope to see. They sat side by side, but there was distance. Not physical distance, they were close enough, but something intangible, something in the way they didn't quite lean into each other, the way their smiles didn't quite reach their eyes. That same month, Nicole posted a black and white photo on Instagram celebrating their 19th wedding anniversary with the caption, "Happy anniversary, baby." Keith responded with a simple red heart emoji in the comments. At the time, fans cooed over the sweet gesture. Now, that heart emoji feels painfully insufficient. No words, no declaration of love, just a symbol. Was it all he could manage? Was he already living in his own space by then, already emotionally checked out, going through the motions for the sake of appearances? Industry insiders who study celebrity body language are now going back through archives of their recent appearances, analyzing every photo, every gesture. There's a pattern, says Dr. Elena Morrison, a psychologist who specializes in non-verbal communication. In their earlier years, you see constant touching, his hand on her back, her hand on his arm. They orbited each other. But in the past year or two, they stand separately. They pose for photos, they smile, but they're not connected anymore. The anniversary post that broke hearts. That Instagram anniversary post has now taken on an almost tragic quality. Nicole, who is usually so eloquent, so articulate, reduced to 3 words. Happy anniversary, baby. Was it all she could say? Was she already feeling the relationship slipping away, already sensing Keith's withdrawal? Or was she trying to manifest something that was no longer there, hoping that public declarations might somehow revive what was dying in private? Relationship experts point out that when couples start performing their relationship for social media, it's often a red flag. When you have to announce your happiness, when you have to prove your love to the world, it's usually because you're trying to convince yourself, explains Dr. Marcus Chen, a marriage counselor who has worked with high-profile couples. Truly happy couples don't need the validation. They just are. The comments on that post are now flooded with people who've returned after hearing the news. "I can see it now," wrote one user. The sadness in her eyes. Another commented, "She was trying so hard to hold on." Whether these observations are genuine insight or hindsight bias doesn't really matter. The collective narrative has shifted. The fairy tale is being rewritten as a tragedy. The radio interview that revealed everything. In July 2025, Keith Urban abruptly ended a radio interview in Australia when hosts asked him about Nicole's intimate scenes with Zac Efron in the Netflix film A Family Affair. At the time, some fans defended him, saying he was protecting his wife's dignity. Others thought he was being overly sensitive. But now, that moment looks different. During a Wall of Truth segment on Mix 102, 3 Inches Adelaide, host Max Buford asked, "What does Keith Urban think when he sees his beautiful wife with beautiful younger men like Zac Efron having these beautiful love scenes on TV?" Soon after, the show's producer revealed that Keith and his team had disconnected from Zoom because they didn't want us to ask that question. Was this the reaction of a protective husband? Or was it the reaction of a man who was already emotionally done with the marriage and couldn't bear to discuss his wife at all? Sources now suggest the latter. Keith wasn't defending Nicole, reveals an insider close to the situation. He was defending himself from having to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. He couldn't sit there and play the supportive husband when he'd already moved out of their home. What the world thought. The illusion of the perfect marriage. For nearly 2 decades, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were held up as the gold standard of celebrity marriages. They were the couple that made it work, despite Hollywood's notorious relationship graveyard. They were proof that love could survive fame, distance, demanding careers, and the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. Fan forums were filled with adoration. Relationship goals. People would comment under their photos. If they can make it work, anyone can. There were countless articles written about their secrets to a happy marriage, their decision to never text but always call each other, their commitment to having no secrets. People studied them, tried to emulate them, believed in them. They represented hope, says entertainment journalist Madison Rivers. In an industry where marriages last about as long as milk in the sun, Nicole and Keith were the exception. They were older, wiser, more grounded. They'd both been through difficult times, Nicole with her divorce from Tom Cruise, Keith with his addiction issues. They'd earned their happiness. Or so we thought. The revelation of their separation has hit fans harder than most celebrity breakups. Social media erupted with shock, disbelief, and genuine grief. "I feel like I'm mourning," wrote one Twitter user. "If they couldn't make it, what hope is there for the rest of us?" The sentiment has been echoed thousands of times across platforms, but there's another reaction too, a darker, more cynical one. "Of course it didn't last," some commenters sneer. "Nothing in Hollywood is real. It's all PR." These voices point to every anniversary post, every red carpet appearance, every interview where they gushed about each other and claim it was all performance. All lies. The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in the middle. They loved each other once genuinely, deeply. But love isn't always enough. And pretending it is, performing happiness for the cameras, only prolongs the inevitable. The lives they built and lost. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of their separation is what they're losing beyond each other. They built an entire life together, a world that was theirs alone. Nicole spoke in a 2019 interview about how their Nashville home was always full of kids, sometimes hosting 8 children for dinner after school. She talked about her roots being deeply embedded in Nashville, about the community they'd created there. It wasn't just a house, it was a home filled with laughter, music, family, friends. Now Keith has moved out and acquired his own residence in Nashville, while Nicole remains in the family home with their daughters. That house, once filled with the warmth of a complete family, must feel cavernous now. Every room holds memories. The studio where Keith would play guitar late at night, the kitchen where they cooked together, the bedroom they shared, all haunted now by the ghost of what was. Their friends are devastated too. When a couple like this splits, it ripples through their entire social circle. Mutual friends are forced to choose sides or try unsuccessfully to remain neutral. Events become awkward. Who gets invited to what? Birthday parties, holidays, gatherings, all of it has to be reconfigured. It's not just a couple breaking up, explains relationship therapist Dr. Sarah Williams. It's an entire ecosystem being disrupted. Their friends, their children's friends, their professional networks, everyone is affected. And for a couple as beloved as Nicole and Keith, the impact extends to their fans too. People feel personally betrayed, personally hurt, because they invested emotionally in this relationship. The timing. Why now? Sources say they've been living apart since the beginning of summer 2025, meaning the separation likely occurred sometime in May or June. Why then? What was the final straw? Some sources point to their schedules. Nicole has been on a relentless work pace, filming back-to-back projects. Keith launched multiple tour legs, North American dates in July, Australian shows in August, then another North American run through mid-October. They were like two ships passing in the night, except they stopped even bothering to wave. But others suggest something more specific. In July, Nicole applied for residency in Portugal, and Keith was notably absent from the application. At the time, his team explained it away as a scheduling conflict with his tour. But now it looks different. Was Nicole already planning a life without him? Was she setting up an escape route, a new beginning in a new country? There's also the matter of their daughters. Sunday Rose is 17 now, and Faith Margaret is 14. Sunday is on the verge of leaving for college, entering her own adult life. Many couples who've been holding on for the kids find that once the children are grown, there's nothing left holding them together. The scaffolding falls away, and you see the building was empty all along. Nicole likely looked at her life and realized that once Sunday leaves, it'll just be her, Keith, when he's not touring. And Faith, speculates clinical psychologist Dr. Robert Martinez. And she asked herself, is this enough? Is this what I want for the next 20 years? And the answer was no. The one-sided nature of the split. Perhaps the most painful detail to emerge is that this separation wasn't mutual. Nicole didn't want it and tried to save the marriage. This transforms the narrative entirely. It's not a case of two people mutually deciding to part ways. It's a case of one person giving up and the other desperately trying to hold on. Multiple sources confirm that Keith made the decision to separate and move out, while Nicole has been trying to keep the family together. Imagine being Nicole in that position, a woman who has achieved everything professionally, who has wealth, fame, talent, beauty, and still being powerless to keep her husband from leaving. All the Oscars in the world can't fix a broken marriage. All the adoration of millions of fans can't replace the love of the one person whose love you want most. It's a complete role reversal from her first marriage, notes Hollywood historian Patricia Meadows. With Tom Cruise, Nicole was reportedly blindsided by the divorce he filed suddenly, and she was devastated. She spent years rebuilding herself, finding happiness with Keith. And now, history is repeating itself, but slower. This time, she can see it coming, but she's still powerless to stop it. In some ways, that might be even worse. Friends say Nicole is devastated. Her sister Antonia has reportedly become a rock, with the entire Kidman family rallying to support her through this crisis. But no amount of family support can take away the pain of a marriage ending, especially when you fought to save it and failed. Keith's silence speaks volumes. While sources paint Nicole as the one fighting for the marriage, Keith has been conspicuously silent. He's continued his tour schedule, performing throughout the summer and into fall. He hasn't posted about Nicole on social media since May. He hasn't addressed the separation publicly. He's simply moved on. This silence is telling. Some interpret it as dignity, as taking the high road by not engaging with the media circus. Others see it as coldness, as abandonment. Real people, as Keith and Nicole are often described by friends, would be devastated, emotional, struggling. Yet Keith appears to be functioning normally, performing night after night, living his life. Grief looks different for everyone, cautions trauma counselor Dr. Jennifer Walsh. Just because Keith is working doesn't mean he's not hurting. Some people process by staying busy, by losing themselves in their craft. The stage might be the only place he feels in control right now, but fans aren't buying it. The comment sections under Keith's recent Instagram posts have turned hostile. How could you do this to her? They demand. She stood by you through rehab and you leave her. The court of public opinion has rendered its verdict, and Keith has been found guilty of what exactly no one can quite articulate, but guilty nonetheless. The financial and legal reality. Nicole was ranked as the highest paid actress in the world by Forbes in 2024. She has built an empire: production companies, endorsement deals, a portfolio of real estate. Keith, while successful in his own right, with 4 Grammy Awards and 15 Academy of Country Music Awards, operates on a different financial scale. Without a prenuptial agreement, the division of assets could be complex and contentious. Will Keith seek spousal support? Will Nicole fight for majority custody of their daughters, even though both are nearly adults? Will their lawyers engage in the kind of brutal warfare that we've seen in other high-profile divorces? So far, neither has filed for divorce yet, leaving the door technically open for reconciliation, or at least for a negotiated settlement outside of court. But legal experts predict this won't be simple. You're talking about 2 decades of accumulated wealth, property in multiple countries, intellectual property rights, royalties, future earnings, explains family law attorney Marcus Sterling. Even if they want to be amicable, untangling all of this takes time and careful negotiation, and if either side decides to fight, this could drag on for years. What happens next? Predictions and possibilities. The question everyone is asking: will they divorce, or is this separation a stepping stone to reconciliation? Optimists point to the fact that neither has filed for divorce yet as evidence that hope remains. Maybe this is a wake-up call. Maybe time apart will make them realize what they're losing. Maybe they'll find their way back to each other. Realists, however, see a different outcome. When a couple at this life stage separates, especially after such a long marriage, the chances of reconciliation are slim, states Dr. Chen. They're not young anymore. They're not going to change dramatically. If the fundamental incompatibilities exist now, they'll exist 6 months from now, a year from now. Separation usually just confirms what both people already knew: it's over. For Nicole, the future is both terrifying and full of possibility. At 58, she's still at the height of her career. She has financial independence, professional respect, loving daughters, and a support network. She could remain single, focusing on her work and her children. She could date quietly, finding companionship without remarriage. Or she could, eventually, fall in love again, though that seems unlikely for someone who's now been disappointed by 2 major marriages. For Keith, the speculation is different. He's younger, less burdened by Hollywood expectations, more private. He could disappear into his music, letting his art process his pain. He could date, and the tabloids will eagerly report on every woman he's seen with, dissecting whether she's a rebound or the real thing. Or he could remain alone, finally free of the pressures of being Nicole Kidman's husband, a role that may have weighed on him more than anyone knew. The children, Sunday and Faith, navigate the fallout. Sunday Rose at 17 and Faith Margaret at 14 are at particularly vulnerable ages for their parents' separation. Sunday is preparing for college, a time when she should be excited about her future, not worried about her family falling apart. Faith is in the turbulent middle of adolescence, when stability matters most. Sources say Nicole is holding the family together through this difficult time. But what does that really mean? How do you hold together something that's fundamentally broken? How do you reassure your daughters that everything will be okay when you don't believe it yourself? Child psychologists warn that parental separation during the teenage years can have long-lasting effects. Teenagers are old enough to understand what's happening, but not always mature enough to process it healthily, explains adolescent therapist Dr. Rachel Kim. They may blame themselves, or blame one parent, or become cynical about love and relationships. The damage can last well into adulthood. Both Nicole and Keith will have to navigate co-parenting, attending school events separately, dividing holidays, coordinating schedules. Sunday's high school graduation, her college move-in day, Faith's milestones, all these moments will be tinged with the sadness of a family that used to be whole. And then there's the complication of Nicole's other children, Isabella and Connor. Her adopted children, with Tom Cruise. Already estranged from their mother due to Scientology, will they view this separation as confirmation of their beliefs about Nicole? Will Sunday and Faith have relationships with their half-siblings? Or will the family fractures deepen? The legacy of a love story. What will history remember about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban? Will they be another cautionary tale about Hollywood marriages, added to the long list of couples who couldn't make it work? Or will they be remembered for what they had when it was good 19 years of apparent happiness, 2 beautiful daughters, mutual support through career highs and personal struggles? The truth is, both narratives can coexist. They loved each other. They built a life together. They raised children and supported each other's dreams. And then, as happens to many couples, they grew apart. The love didn't die dramatically, it faded, slowly, until one day they looked at each other and realized they were strangers who happened to share a history. Every relationship that ends isn't a failure, reflects Dr. Williams. Sometimes people come together for a season of life, and when that season ends, so does the relationship. Nicole and Keith gave each other what they needed when they needed it. Maybe that was enough. But try telling that to the millions of fans who believed in them, who saw them as proof that true love exists, that fairy tales can come true. For those people, this separation isn't just sad, it's a crisis of faith. If Nicole and Keith couldn't make it, if even the couples who seem perfect are actually struggling behind closed doors, then what's the point of believing in love at all? Perhaps that's the real lesson here. Not that love doesn't exist or that marriage is doomed, but that we need to stop projecting our fantasies onto real people. Nicole and Keith are human beings with complexities, struggles, and breaking points. They were never the fairy tale we wanted them to be. They were always just 2 people trying their best. And, eventually, their best wasn't enough. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the story doesn't have to have a happy ending to be meaningful. Maybe the 19 years they had together, the daughters they raised, the moments of genuine connection they shared, maybe that's enough. Not a failure, but a chapter that's now closing, making way for whatever comes next. The world watches and waits. Will they reconcile? Will they divorce? Will they each find happiness again? Separately? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The fairy tale is over. What remains now is just real life, messy and painful and uncertain, exactly as real life always is.